The voicemail came in at 2:47 in the afternoon, while I was sitting across from a client at my desk explaining why her husband's investment account in the Cayman Islands wasn't going to stay hidden much longer. I didn't listen to it until I got back to my car. My husband's voice, calm, measured, the same tone he used when he was returning a defective appliance at Canadian Tire, politely firm, like the inconvenience was minor and he'd already moved on emotionally before the conversation started. I've retained counsel. You'll be receiving documentation by the end of the week. I think it's better if you stay somewhere else when you get home tonight. I've already had the locks changed. I left a bag by the side entrance. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, we need to talk. No, after 8 years. A bag by the side entrance. I sat in my car in the parking garage on King Street for probably 4 minutes before I even thought to breathe correctly. It was a Tuesday in February, -18, with the wind chill, and my husband had packed me a bag and left it outside our house like I was a Salvation Army donation he hadn't gotten around to dropping off. I called him back, went to voicemail, called again, voicemail. My name is Celeste Armand. I'm 32 years old, I live in Ottawa, and I am a forensic accountant specializing in matrimonial asset recovery. For the last 6 years, I have helped women find what their husbands were hiding. Hidden accounts, shell companies, undervalued businesses, offshore transfers. I have sat across from crying women in my office and told them, calmly and with documented evidence, exactly how much their husbands thought they were worth stealing from. I never once imagined I'd be sitting in my own car on a Tuesday afternoon realizing I was about to become one of them. The bag by the side entrance had 2 days of clothes in it, a phone charger, and my toothbrush. He backed the travel size one, not my regular one. I found out later he kept the good toothbrush. I'm still not sure if that was petty or just careless, probably both. I drove to my sister's apartment in Banier. She took one look at my face and didn't ask any questions. She just handed me a glass of Cabernet and sat down beside me on the couch. He changed the locks, I said. She said a word I won't repeat. Then she said it again, louder. I pulled up our joint account on my phone. The one we'd built together over 8 years. The one where we deposited our tax returns and our bonuses and the inheritance I'd received when my grandmother passed away 3 years ago. $42,000 I'd put in there because we were planning to renovate the kitchen and I trusted him. The account had a balance of $312. I put my phone face down on her coffee table and drank my entire glass of wine in one go. The transfer history showed 12 separate transactions over the last 6 weeks. Not one large suspicious withdrawal, 12 careful, measured movements. Just under $10,000 each. Structured, deliberate. The kind of transfers designed to stay below the reporting thresholds that trigger automatic bank flags. My husband, the man who needed my help to do his own taxes every April, had apparently learned enough about financial structuring to avoid triggering FINTRAC alerts. He had help. My sister refilled my glass without me asking. Here is what I want you to understand. Before I go any further, I was not a pushover. I was not naive. I was not kind of woman who didn't notice things. I am the woman people hire specifically because I notice things other people miss. I have testified as an expert witness in federal court. I have a framed letter from a judge in Ontario thanking me for exceptional forensic analysis that significantly assisted the court. And I had completely missed what was happening in my own house. That particular humiliation took me about 48 hours to metabolize. My sister was patient with me during that time. I went into the office the next morning because staying still felt impossible. My colleague, we worked together for 4 years, he does commercial fraud and I do matrimonial, took one look at me and said, "Who died?" "My marriage," I said. He put a coffee on my desk and closed the door. I spent the morning pulling what I could access. Our joint accounts, decimated. My personal account, untouched, because it was mine alone and he didn't have access. The mortgage, Current because it came out of a separate account I'd set up specifically for household bills after the third time he forgot to pay the internet. I'd called it excessive at the time. I called it strategic now. The documentation his lawyer sent arrived Thursday. A courier in a yellow envelope to my sister's apartment because my husband had apparently told them I was temporarily residing there, as if I'd chosen to leave, as if the bag by the side entrance had been a polite suggestion I'd freely accepted. I read through it at her kitchen table with a highlighter and a pad of paper. The separation date he'd listed was 4 months ago, October. I was in Toronto in October for a conference. He'd been texting me every night asking how it was going. He'd sent me a photo of the soup he made for dinner with the caption, "Miss you already." The man who'd listed October as the official end of our marriage had sent me a heart emoji on October the 14th at 9:47 p.m. I took a photo of that text. I have very organized screenshots. His lawyer had filed in Ontario but structured part of it through a numbered company registered in Alberta, which is a thing people do when they want to complicate jurisdiction and slow down asset recovery. A numbered company. Registered 4 months ago, October. I called my own lawyer before I even finished reading the documents. She's been my lawyer since I was 24, and she is one of the most frightening people I know in the best possible way. "Tell me everything," she said. I told her everything. The silence on the other end lasted about 4 seconds, which from her is practically a standing ovation of disbelief. Then she said, "He knows what you do for a living." "Yes." "And he still tried this." "Yes." Another pause. "Okay. I need you to send me everything you have access to right now before anything gets moved. Today. This afternoon." I had already started. Here is the thing about being a forensic accountant. Going through a divorce, you know exactly where to look and you know exactly how long you have before evidence gets harder to access. The average person going through a separation loses weeks to shock and grief before they start thinking practically. I had 48 hours of shock and then I got practical, which is not a character virtue so much as a coping mechanism, but I'll take it. The numbered Alberta company had a registered agent. I knew the firm not personally but by reputation. They did a lot of incorporation work for people who wanted structural distance from their own assets. I found 3 payments to that company on his personal visa going back 8 months. August. He'd started this in August, when I was working the Henderson case, a particularly brutal matrimonial fraud that had me in the office under 10 most nights and traveling twice a month. August, when he'd been quieter than usual and I chalked it up to the project at work he'd mentioned being stressful. August, when he'd suggested we hold off on the kitchen renovation until things settled down a bit. He'd been planning this while I was helping someone else's wife find her husband's hidden money. My colleague, when I told him this part, laughed so hard he had to put his coffee down. Not unkindly, just the specific, appalled laughter of someone who appreciates irony at a structural level. "You're going to find every cent," he said. "I know," I said. The Alberta company owned a condo in Calgary, 2 blocks from the Bow River, purchased 7 months ago for $640,000, a cash purchase. Registered to the numbered company, which was registered to my husband's name as sole director, which meant it was a marital asset acquired during our marriage, which meant it was subject to equalization under the Family Law Act, which my husband had apparently not thought through carefully enough. My lawyer made a sound when I sent her this, that I can only describe as gleeful. The condo wasn't empty. I'm a forensic accountant, not a private investigator, but I do know how to look at publicly available information. The building's Instagram account, posted by their property management company, very enthusiastic about their vibrant community, had tagged a resident in a photo from a housewarming event in November. A woman, mid-20s, from her profile, fitness instructor. Her own Instagram was public and had been public for months, documenting what appeared to be a very pleasant life in a very nice Calgary condo. She'd posted a photo of the view in December with the caption "Home Sweet Home" and the location tag that matched the building address exactly. She also posted a photo from Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving, October, of a dinner she'd made, and in the background of that photo, visible on the kitchen counter, was a bread box I recognized because I'd bought it at Crate and Barrel 2 years ago and I had been wondering where it went. I showed my sister. She looked at the photo for a long time. Then she said, "Is that your bread box?" Yes. He took her bread box. He took a lot of things. We didn't speak for a moment. "I want to see him in prison," she said. "That might be excessive," I said, "but let's see what he's actually done." What he'd actually done was quite a lot. The structured transfers to avoid FINTRAC reporting is a federal offense under the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Terrorist Financing Act. Not because the money itself was criminal, but because the intent to avoid reporting thresholds is, my husband had, in attempting to quietly drain our joint account, committed financial structuring, which carries its own criminal weight entirely separate from the matrimonial fraud. My lawyer had a contact at FINTRAC. That contact was very interested. His company, he worked in project management for a mid-sized construction firm, had also apparently been a source of creative financing. I requested the financial records through Discovery, and my colleague helped me go through them on a Saturday afternoon in my office, with takeout from the Thai place down the street. The expense reports were instructive. Client dinners at restaurants in Calgary. Site visits that corresponded date for date with the fitness instructor's Instagram posts showing trips to Banff and Lake Louise, and once, memorably, Tofino, a professional development conference in Vancouver in November that was actually a long weekend at the Wickaninish Inn, which I know because she posted a reel about the bathtub. My husband had expensed approximately $31,000 in personal expenses over 14 months. His employer did not know this yet. His employer found out on a Monday morning in March. I sent the documentation to his HR department and his direct manager on a Friday afternoon, which was either calculated or instinctive. I'm still not certain which. I know from professional experience that Fridays are effective because the weekend gives people time to get very angry before they have to act professionally again on Monday morning. He was called into a meeting at 8:30 a.m. I know this because his manager emailed me that afternoon to confirm they were opening an internal investigation and to thank me for the thorough documentation. She'd attached a read receipt request to the email, and the timestamp showed she'd opened my spreadsheet at 11:47 p.m. Friday night. Someone worked through the weekend. My sister brought me tea at 9 in the morning and watched me read the email. "He lost his job," she said. "He's being investigated," I said. "Losing the job is the easy part." The legal cascade started the following week. My lawyer coordinated it with what I can only describe as architectural precision. The divorce filing and counterclaim landed at his lawyer's office Tuesday morning. The asset recovery application, seeking an immediate freeze on the Alberta condo and all accounts held by the numbered company, was filed simultaneously. The FINTRAC referral triggered a parallel investigation. The Canada Revenue Agency was also, it turned out, quite interested in a numbered company that had received large cash transfers and purchased real estate without corresponding declared income. His lawyer called my lawyer on Tuesday afternoon and, according to my lawyer, sounded like a person who had just opened a package expecting socks and found a live animal. The fitness instructor, to her credit, was not entirely a villain. She was 24 years old, and she had believed a story. My husband had told her he was separated, that his wife and he'd described me as volatile and obsessive about work, which fair, I work a lot, but volatile is a bit much, had essentially abandoned the marriage. He'd shown her a document. She didn't know it was fabricated. She'd been paying rent. She told my lawyer in a written statement because he'd asked her to contribute while the settlement was being processed, and she'd assumed that was normal. She didn't know about the bed box's previous owner. She cooperated completely. She provided every text, every promise, every document he'd given her. She moved out of the condo within 2 weeks and back to her parents in Edmonton. her statement confirmed the dates and the travel and the expenses, and it confirmed that he had specifically, deliberately told her the marriage had ended before it had. That made the separation date fraud documented by a third-party witness. My husband called me directly in late March. I answered, which surprised both of us, I think. "This has gotten out of hand," he said. I let that sentence exist in the air for a moment. "You changed the locks," I said. "You left me a bag with my travel toothbrush in it. You structured transfers to avoid federal reporting thresholds. You bought a condo for someone else using money that includes my grandmother's inheritance. You expensed $31,000 in personal spending to your employer and listed one of those expenses as a team-building retreat. That was a long weekend at a 5-star resort with your girlfriend." A pause. "I can explain." "You also," I said, "took my bread box." Another pause. "What?" "Send the bread box back," I said, and I ended the call. My colleague taped a printed copy of that exchange summary to my office door. I left it there for 2 weeks. The CRA audit, when it concluded, found that the numbered company had been used to funnel personal expenses through as business deductions, which meant my husband had been committing tax fraud in addition to everything else. The reassessment added $67,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. The asset picture that emerged from full disclosure was, to put it professionally, revealing. There was a Calgary condo, $640,000, fully a marital asset. There was the original joint account, partially recoverable through the bank once the structuring complaint was filed. There was a TFSA I hadn't known about, opened 2 years ago, with $44,000 in it. There was a boat, a 19-foot Mirocraft, stored at a marina in Smiths Falls under his brother's name, which I found through a marina registration database and which was worth about $28,000. His brother, when contacted, was less than pleased to discover he'd been used as a storage vehicle for his brother's divorce scheming. He provided a written statement confirming the boat was not his and had never been his. "He used his own brother," my sister said, when I told her. "He's running out of people," I said. The court date was in May. Our side of the courtroom had my lawyer, my colleague as a supporting expert witness, my sister, and a forensic accounting team that included one of my former professors from Carleton, who had agreed to testify as an independent reviewer of my methodology because he said, and I'm quoting exactly here, "I've been waiting for a case this interesting for 11 years. His side had a lawyer who had clearly been given insufficient information about what he was walking into, and my husband, who was wearing a suit that looked slightly too large, as if he had lost weight in the intervening months, which he had. The judge reviewed the materials with an expression that cycled over approximately 90 minutes, through confusion, then concentration, then something that looked very much like the particular tiredness of a person who has seen a great deal and still manages to be surprised by the creativity of human bad decisions. At one point, she looked up from the asset disclosure documents and said, "Mr. Armand, this numbered company was registered 4 months into what you're claiming was a de facto separation. Can you explain why you then sent your wife a text message on October 14th saying, and I'm reading from the exhibit, 'Miss you already, made soup,' with a heart emoji?" His lawyer said that perhaps his client's emotional state had been complicated during that period. The judge looked at the lawyer. The lawyer looked at the table. My lawyer, who has been practicing family law for 23 years and maintains a reputation for being entirely unflappable, permitted herself one small exhale. The financial fraud findings were presented in full. My former professor described my methodology as rigorous and conservative, if anything, cautious in its estimates. The CRA audit results were submitted. The FINTRAC investigation had concluded and its findings were included. The employer's internal investigation had concluded and my husband had been terminated for cause in April, which meant no severance and an active civil suit from his former company for restitution of the $31,000 in fraudulent expenses. The equalization calculation, when completed with full asset disclosure, resulted in a payment owing to me of $412,000, including the recovery of my grandmother's inheritance with interest, half the value of the condo, the TFSA, and the boat, which his brother had actually been quite helpful in accurately evaluating. His parting comment to me in the courthouse corridor after the order was issued was that I had made this so much harder than it needed to be. I thought about that for a moment. "You left me a bag by the side entrance," I said, "with the travel toothbrush." He didn't have an answer for that. My sister was waiting outside on Elgin Street in the May sun with 2 coffees from the place on the corner. She handed me one and looked at my face. "Well," she said. "We won," I said. She hugged me so hard I spilled some of the coffee, which she apologized for, and then we both laughed for longer than was probably dignified on a courthouse steps. It's been 7 months since that day. The condo sold in August. Calgary market was favorable, and the funds were transferred as ordered. I hired a locksmith, which felt cosmically appropriate. I had the good toothbrush replaced, although I bought a nicer one this time. My grandmother's money is in a GIC. I'm not renovating the kitchen right now. I might eventually, or I might use it for something else entirely. The point is, it's mine and it's accounted for, and I know exactly where it is, which is the most comfortable I've felt about a sum of money in several years. The numbered company was dissolved. The CRA settlement was reached. The fitness instructor sent me a brief direct email about 2 months after everything concluded. She apologized without qualification, acknowledged she'd been careless about asking the right questions, and said she was working with a therapist on why she'd accepted explanations that didn't hold up. It was one of the more honest emails I've received in a professional capacity, which is unusual because it wasn't professional at all. I replied and wished her well. I meant it. My husband, my ex-husband, I suppose, though the paper isn't final quite yet, is currently managing the consequences of several simultaneous legal and financial processes, none of which I initiated out of anger. I want to be clear about that. I initiated them because they were correct. Because what he did was wrong in ways that extended well past the personal and into the documented, provable, actionable. Anger was present, yes. But the work I did was the work I always do, careful, sourced, presented without embellishment. My colleague hung a new sign on my office door last month. It says, in very small tasteful letters, specializing in finding what husbands think they've hidden. I told him to take it down. He said it was good marketing. He's not wrong. I got a referral last week from a woman in Gatineau whose husband had apparently been running a similar scheme, structured transfers, a numbered company, a property in another province. She found me through a friend who'd heard the story second-hand, the version that gets passed around in the way stories do when they contain enough irony to be worth retelling. "I heard you did something like this yourself," she said on the phone. "Something like it," I said. "And you still found everything?" "All of it," I said, "every cent." She was quiet for a moment. "Good," she said, "because I need someone who already knows what it feels like." I booked her for Thursday morning. First consultation is always free. I keep thinking about that bag, the travel toothbrush, the 2 days of clothes folded neatly, like he'd been considerate about it, like the care taken in the packing somehow softened what the packing meant. It didn't. But I think about the fact that he thought it would. That's the part that stays with me most. Not the stolen money, not the numbered company, not even the bread box showing up in someone else's kitchen on the other side of the country. It's that he looked at 8 years and thought, bag by the side entrance. Travel toothbrush. Done. What I've come to understand, slowly and not without some resistance, is that actions like that don't come from nowhere. They come from a long series of smaller choices, each one a little dishonest, each one a little careless about someone else's reality, until the person making them has drifted so far from basic decency that they genuinely can't see the scale of what they're doing. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He was someone who'd made a habit of taking shortcuts around honesty until the shortcuts became the whole road. I think about that when people ask me how I stayed calm through it. The truth is, I wasn't calm because I was strong. I was calm because I was clear. There's a difference. Clarity isn't about suppressing what you feel. I was furious, I was humiliated, I cried in my sister's bathroom twice. It's about not letting what you feel become the thing that drives your decisions. My grandmother used to say that a clear head is the most useful thing you can own. She was right. She was also apparently much better at estate planning than anyone gave her credit for, which I find quietly hilarious now. The work I did, the tracing, the documentation, the methodical reconstruction of every transfer and every lie, that wasn't revenge. I want to be careful about that word. Revenge implies something satisfying and personal. What I did was accurate. I applied the same rigor I applied to every case, and the outcome followed logically from the evidence. What he built badly, and badly built things don't hold. That's not fate or karma in any mystical sense. It's just consequence. It's what happens when you construct a life on fabricated documents and structured fraud and the assumption that the person you wronged is too overwhelmed to look closely. He assumed wrong. I think the thing I'd want anyone to take from this, and I don't say this lightly because I spent a long time not wanting to take anything from it myself, is that the qualities that actually protect you aren't the dramatic ones. It's not boldness or aggression or some triumphant moment of confrontation. It's quieter than that. It's the discipline to keep learning your craft even when the work is hard. It's the integrity to do things correctly even when no one is watching. And it's the willingness to keep going when everything around you has been deliberately destabilized by someone who counted on you stopping. My colleague still has that sign on my office door. I'd stopped asking him to take it down. My grandmother's money is in a GIC, accounted for, exactly where it should be. And the toothbrush I bought to replace mine is considerably nicer than the one he packed.